Hello everyone, welcome back to MLS Moves. Please make sure you like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Adam, we got him, man. It's official. The other night, you and I did a live stream. There were a lot of reports talking about it happening. Now, obviously, they haven't officially announced Poch, but every big name reporter has said he will be the next USMNT coach. Man, we did it. We got a big name officially.
Yeah, yo. I mean, people are in the comments that night like, how do you guys know this? Is it official? Is it unofficial? And just to kind of like go back to that night, right? And I think like that night, that next morning, um, it was listen, like I gotta give my man Andrew a lot of credit. Like, I don't know who he is. And I don't know, like a couple people are like, yeah, he's a good guesser. I'm like, I don't think he's a good guesser, man. Like, kid put out, whoever it is, put out a very official, like, I got this. I got sources. They told me this is happening. And for hours, actually multiple hours, I remember texting you, like, what is this thing? And you were like, what is this thing? Is this real? Like, and that's how everybody was. Like, everybody, like all the guys I know with sources. I have a group chat with Tack and Pete and the Straight Red guys and a couple other people. In that group chat, everybody was like, that's not real. Nah, we haven't heard anything. Like, here, let me text people. And good for that guy, man. Like, whoever he is and whatever he's cultivating, however he's done it, like, he supposedly, I wasn't privy to it at the time, but he supposedly had the Berhalter firing a couple
Yeah.
hours before. That's what a bunch of people said, at least. And it's on his timeline. And he's a German American guy. And a lot of his tweets are in German. He like follows Bundesliga really intensely. And listen, man, like I just want to kind of riff on this for a second because I think it's pertinent to what you do as well, right? I don't do this stuff. I don't really have the ambition to like create connections, but you've done that, right? I think naturally through your channel and through your presence online, a lot of MLS people and a lot of American soccer people have you've connected with them through the years. However, had them on the channel or just connected via DM or whatever. And there's a lot of guys like you doing it, and all of you guys get discredited constantly. Like constantly, because there are some BS people out there who literally make stuff up. I totally believe that too. I know that. And so when somebody named Andrew underscore 04 underscore, what it's like, but man, credit to the kid. Like, and then a couple hours after, it was like I think maybe a former Univision, or it was a Hispanic journalist kind of had it. He's doing documentaries now, but supposedly used to work for Tudin or Univision, one of the Spanish channels in soccer reporting. So he had some connections. He did it, and then Michelle Giannoni was like, "This guy's legit. Trust him." And then Men in Blazers came out, and to me, that was the one that made us go, "All right, let's jump on here and talk about it," because like Men in Blazers and their 300K YouTube subscribers who people rely on for news. They really do. Like, I know they're kind of a comedy channel and they do a bunch of stuff, but they do soccer news. And that made us like perk up and go, let's get on here, because this, I know it's not confirmed and we don't have Fab yet, we don't have a lot of other people, but this is real. And then I think that probably made guys like Fab and all the other, you retweeted one, was it Ornstein or something, right?
Yeah.
A bunch of very legit soccer journalists, traditional, all of a sudden had it, whatever, 4, 5, 6 hours later. And we woke up in the morning. I think I was up with my daughter, who wakes up at 5:30 a.m. And I think I probably texted you and was like, yo, we gotta here we go from Fab, like we're in here. But yeah, man, I don't understand. I thought I was gonna hear like unanimous excitement, and mostly unanimous excitement from people that I like know and respect, but a lot of hate out there coming from certainly some El Tree fans, but even it seems like some, I don't know, disgruntled US fans of some sort. I'm not sure.
Well, you brought up a good point about the stigma with no less or no name accounts. Oh, they can't be right because he's got underscore and 04 behind, in his name. And I think that that's a good point because people like that can get it right, right? There's been numerous accounts with little following or people I haven't heard of that have broken news on several different things: basketball, football, soccer, whatever it may be, news in real life, like politics, whatever it may be. And I think the bigger accounts like to discredit them because they're upset they weren't the first people to break such news. And they're the ones that are the known commodity, right? So I think that their egos are hurt because they don't break the news and they're jealous. I really believe that. So the Andrew, you said _04, I think is his name. Give the man his flowers. He was the first one to say that this hire was happening. He was the first one to say Greg was getting canned. So he deserves credit and he deserves praise for his hard work and being the first to break the news. And listen, people can say, well, he guessed it, whatever. Listen, if the guy got it right, you have to give him credit. That's just how it is.
Have to. And listen, everybody starts somewhere too, right? Like,
Yeah.
maybe he's fab in 10 years. I have no idea, right? Like, everybody starts somewhere, right? And like, I told this story the other day. It was like, when I was in the basketball kind of recruitment world, I worked for this company called the Hoop Group before I got into college coaching. And a lot of that world is like, who can figure out where players are going first, right? There's constant breaking news with that, right? Where's Zion Williamson going to go? Where's this guy? And those commitment announcements are a big deal in that space, right? Very much like in the NBA circles, it's Shams and Woj, and there's a couple others who kind of fight for that breaking news thing. And in soccer, it's where Fab has like a monopoly on it almost. It feels like
Yeah.
with European stuff, he's really, I feel like he like saw what Woj was doing in basketball and was like, oh, somebody's got to fill that for soccer. Because he's like the first and only, it feels like. It doesn't feel like there's anybody else in there. But anyway, my point is like this kid, he was like 16 years old. And this was like the advent of Twitter and social media. And he had a blog, and he just kept nailing where these like top 50 players were going. And he was little did we know, he was at this school and was like boys with a top 50 player. And that top 50 player connected him to all these other people in that whole like, shoe circuit basketball world. And he just cultivated these personal friendships as like a peer. And they wanted to tell him, they're like, yeah, I got you, man. Like, he's like, yo, if you wouldn't mind, man, just like tell me your commitment when you get it. Like, I got a blog. I'd love to announce it. And everybody was like, cool. Like, like they're not talking to whoever, some grown reporter every day. So that kid just kept nailing it. And everybody was like, who is this, man? Like, and where's he coming from? So credit to the independent people doing work out there. U.S. soccer journalism specifically needs more people like Andrew _04 and like you and like Tack, people who aren't connected to, a major outlet, who are willing to do some work. Because soccer journalism I find to be really lazy, especially in the U.S. It's like people are so slow. Like with the Berhalter thing, like when it was, post Copa, I was like, how are there not big journalists like all over this story? Like, this is, I don't know, it's like the soccer story in the United States, and it's like crickets from every
Yeah.
big name, in my opinion. And like
100%.
they seem to either not have interest in finding it, not be able to find the news, or even worse, right? Which is what a lot of us have kind of, suspected, be working with the federation in a way, right? Be a little scared to push down the door a little bit. And so we need these independent people to push there, because a lot of the people who are established aren't doing the work, man.
100%. Yeah, I think the journalism in U.S. soccer has got to get better. And I like that there's people like me, like Tack, like Andrew, and so others that are making connections, and Pete too, because Pete obviously has sources at 11 Yanks. Sure. So it's good that there's a lot of people talking to people, trying to get the truth out, trying to connect with people. But one thing that you mentioned earlier that is interesting, and it's really pissed me off, honestly, just because of how nonsensical it is. And it's that people are saying that Poch is overrated, or that he's not good, or that he's a failure because he didn't win at PSG a Champions League. Okay. Now, I think I was texting with you about that tweet where some guy, a Mexican fan, was saying, "Well, yeah, he failed at PSG. He had Mbappe, he had Neymar, he had Messi. How did he not win a Champions League?" Well, first of all, not a single coach has won a Champions League at PSG to begin with. So there you go with that. Uh, Second of all, and this is another thing, Adam, that made me upset, like pissed off, I guess, is me saying this doesn't mean I'm comparing Pochettino to Pep Guardiola,
Right.
but Pep Guardiola only has one Champions League at Man City in 10 years. And nobody would consider him a failure remotely, right? He's not a failure because he has won Champions League. So how is a guy considered a failure with he doesn't have a Champions League when he only coached a team for 1.5 years? How is that considered a failure?
I mean, it's not. Listen, Champions Leagues are freaking hard to win, man. Like unless you're Real Madrid, who somehow just like has the magic, right? Like with Ronaldo, now without Ronaldo, they won 2 post Ronaldo. Like they've got some sort of magic. It's called a lot of money for sure. But I don't want to just say that because a lot of people have a lot of money. A lot of people are spending a lot of money. There's 5 to 10 teams spending, in that same realm, and not winning them. So you got to give them a lot of credit. But like they're freaking hard, man. Pep's got 2 all time. Pep has literally just been coaching like prime Barca, prime Bayern, prime City, so much money behind all those teams when he was coaching them, and he has 2, right? And nobody would say anything other than Pep is, a god, best modern coach, right? We have. He's got 2. Like to me, it's way more of a failure that he would have 2 in like 15 to 16, 17 years of coaching this level team that he's been able to coach than Poch having basically a season and a half at that level club and not winning a Champions League. It's like, and he lost to City in the semifinals, and then they lost in the round of 16, but to Real, who won the Champions League that year. So it's like, it's not like he got knocked out by like, Benfica, or somebody that's spending way less money and it's like a total upset. He got beat by 2 absolute giants in the game. So I don't know, man. Like the PSG stuff's kind of weird. Like he took over in the middle of the season. I think Tuchel had done like a pretty poor job and like they were in third. And domestically they still lost that year. I don't want to like gas up his time at PSG. Like that's not what I'm going to do at all. But like saying it's just like this, absolute and utter failure is really weird because, all he did was he took over a team kind of struggling, right, for what they were in league. Didn't get it done in league that first year, lost in the semifinals. Now, in this whole PSG run of spending money, which has been like a decade probably, right, Will? Like spending crazy money, a little bit longer than that probably.
Probably a decade and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, right. 10, 15 years. That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
They have 3 years where they made the semifinals or beyond, right? And that was one of them. His first year, right? He got that team to the semis, and it's not like PSG is racking up Champions Leagues. Like they've lost in the final once and the semifinal twice, and he made it to the semifinal one of those times. And then they won the league his second year, right? He did, and that's not like that impressive. I'm not here to gas that up either, but like he got them back to the top of the league, which is where they belong. And he, whatever, like had an okay run in one Champions League, lost to City, and then got a bad draw, got Real, and lost. And it happens. And I'm almost positive Neymar was hurt one or both of those years.
I think he was because he was injury plagued at PSG. He was always injured. But one thing you just brought up that's important is that you said you didn't want to gas up him winning the league, right? Because that's PSG's expected to win the league. I agree with that. He did win the league though, and people are like, well, yeah, he won the French league. Who cares? It's like, okay, well, if he didn't win it, what would you have said then? So it's like a lose-lose situation. Oh, he won it. He's supposed to. Oh, he lost it. He's trash. Like, which one is it, right? It can't be both.
Right.
Like, he did what he was supposed to do, but you can't count that as a negative towards him for winning something he's supposed to win. Neymar was always hurt, right? He was hurt all the time. Messi was a shell of himself, heartbroken. I mean, he really didn't have a great run at PSG compared to his Barca days. He was just like a shell of himself. So people saying that this is like some super team, I'll make a good point or a counterpoint too. Messi, Neymar, and Luis Suarez, probably the best trio in the history of soccer, only has one Champions League win together. Just one. One.
And I just looked at the match reports. So they played that first year in the semi, they played City, right? 2 legs. In leg 1, they don't have Messi. They did have Mbappe and Neymar. In leg 2, they didn't have Messi or Mbappe. So they actually had Neymar that year, funny enough. And I'd love to look up the next year because Neymar was hurt every single year. And so it's like the deeper you look into it, you're like, oh, okay, well, Messi was hurt. So you're saying he didn't win with Messi? Like, well, Messi didn't play. Like, what do you like? Yeah. So once again, and I feel like I end up like riding too hard in defense of that year when I don't look into that year very much, in all honesty.
Yeah.
For a couple reasons, right? And I think I posted this after you and I had talked. I kind of went the next day and kind of did some thought, kind of like a little thought process, looked through Poch's career a little bit more in depth and started really thinking like, okay, what in here translates the most? And we talked a little bit about this on the live stream, right? And for me, it's like the Southampton time, the Tottenham time. Those are the times when, for me, I'm seeing a team that looks a little bit more relatable to what the USMNT is going to look like, right? I'm not saying we're Tottenham and I'm not saying we're even Southampton. I'm just saying like in the grand scheme of international football, our roster is not top tier. It's not bottom tier. It's decent, right? It's got some decent pieces. And Poch, I think, has thrived when he's had maybe a little bit of an undervalued squad, some young guys with potential that he has to bring the best out in, right? And I can't overstate the one place we've seen him build, right? Where we've seen him have enough time to build an identity. And we could totally have the conversation like, does he have that amount of time right now, right? Especially he's going to miss the September window, jump in October, hopefully. Does he have enough time to build in the way that, he did at Tottenham? He's got 2 years. I think he does, honestly. Maybe not to the full extent he did at Tottenham. And obviously it's international, not club, so you don't have as much time with players. I get all that. But I think he's got enough time to build. And when we've seen him build, which is in one place, Will, as crazy as that is, right? Like Espanyol just a long time ago would kind of wash that one, in all honesty. Beginning of his coaching career, it's fine. You can go back and look at it. It's not bad. Southampton 1 year, good, but not building. And then Tottenham, it was like 5 years, 6 years, something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like PSG a year and a half, Chelsea 1 year, right? None of those are indicative of like a guy who had a chance to like really put his like mark on a team. But when he was with Tottenham, this is like what's really impressive here. Tottenham is a club who has made in their history, crazy, right? History. Before he came there, Champions League, or if I think it's called European Cup before that, that whatever iteration you want to look at, they'd made it, I think, like twice or something, right? Before he got there. He made it 4 straight years, right? Makes a final, makes knockout rounds multiple times, and then he leaves. And since he's been there, they barely, I think they made it one time. So it's like, you can't understate what he did at that club. And people are pointing to, well, he didn't win. He can get a trophy. And it's like, guys, at certain clubs, getting to a final or making the Champions League a bunch of straight years is the win. And if you don't understand that, you're not following closely.
100%. And also, too, people need to realize how crazy, because a lot of people are just so short-sighted. They don't, I mean, even 5 years ago, people, that's out of their memory, right? They're just thinking about what's happening right now. Those Liverpool teams were insane. And that's who he played in that Champions League final. That they're obviously going to be the underdog and probably the best Liverpool team this, last 20 or 30 years that they've had, right? With the Sadio Mane, the Firmino, and Mo Salah top 3. That's a crazy good front 3, man. And I saw a picture with one of my followers had posted the starting 11 for Tottenham versus Liverpool, and it's not even comparable. I mean, we're talking about an A+ team versus probably a B- team.
Right.
And I mean, they obviously lost, but making it to the Champions League final is a huge accomplishment. And
Harry Kane went down in the first leg of the quarterfinals. They lose Harry Kane. And I remember that. I loved those Tottenham teams. And I remember being like, there they go. And like to coach them through that second leg, I believe, which was at City. I think they had a 1-0 lead and they were going to City. And it's like, oh, they're done. They don't have Harry Kane and they have to go to Etihad. Like, get out of here. And I think they lost that game 4-3, right? So figures out how to like battle to a 4-3 with City, and then goes into a semi against like a ridiculous, awesome young Ajax squad. All those guys got sold for like 50 mil plus, like ridiculous. That Ajax team was just ballers, so good. And to make it through that without Harry Kane in either leg, like it's Tottenham is like one really impressive thing after another. And I just looked it up. One Champions League all time before he came, one after he's left, 4 straight with him, right? Qualified for 4 straight Champions Leagues. And like Tottenham is not a team that finishes in the top 4, guys. They did not finish in the top 4 from 1990, right? Like they finished from 1990 all the way until his tenure. They finished in the top 4 once. Since he's left, they finished in the top 4 once, right? All he did was religiously finish in the top 4 in his years there. It seemed, do you remember, like, we call it the Big Six? We're like, oh, the Big Six teams. And it's like, we call it the Big Six because Poch came in and made it the Big Six at the end of the 2010s.
100%. And I just looked this up too myself. I mean, they beat Man City in the, what was it, the quarterfinals to advance in that year. Beat Man City, beat Pep's Manchester City team, who had just won the league that year with 98 points in the Premier League, one of the best teams we've ever seen. That's an impressive feat, right? I mean, that's crazy. And then also, Adam, their group, they had Barca, Inter Milan, and PSV. If PSV is the bottom team in that group, that's a damn good group, man. That's a tough group, right? And then Inter, and obviously Barca's a tough. That's like a death group, honestly. And he was able to get out of that. So he has proven himself time and time again how good of a manager he is and how much he's able to get out of his players. And I want people to remember this. He's done this with teams, like you just said, who aren't traditionally the top of the league. Sure, he coached PSG, which dominates the French league. He coached them for like 1.5 seasons, and he won the league in his first full season. So he did what he was supposed to do. Just for context, just think about if he was coaching a Barcelona, if he was coaching a Real Madrid, if he was coaching a Manchester City, if he was coaching a Liverpool. I'm pretty sure the results would be the same. Okay, people are going to say, well, he wouldn't get the same results that Pep does with Man City. But if he was at Man City, I think me and you both could agree he would have some titles under his belt if he was coaching Man City. So absolutely. It's not like he's a mediocre coach. He's a damn good coach.
Listen, Tottenham wasn't giving, he wanted more money and Daniel Levy wouldn't let them spend. Like they had a window. It's really sad actually, right? Because it's like, all right. And they kind of hamstrung themselves with that stadium thing, if I'm not mistaken, right? They had like a ton of debt from the stadium. But like they had this window where it was like, oh my God, we have Sonny, Eriksson, Kane, Alderweireld, like their back line was so good. Like they had this like absolute window to win. And Harry Kane didn't leave, which is crazy, right? I know he eventually did, but like he wanted to stay there and win at Tottenham. And they wouldn't spend. Like he just wanted to like strengthen the squad. And like actually the main thing he wanted to do, if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while since this was like out there, is he wanted to add depth because he was fighting on 2 fronts. And we talked about this the other night, but like as soon as you go to fight on 2 fronts, it becomes really tough unless you have depth, real depth, right? Where you can say, all right, we can rotate half the squad and we're still going to win this group stage game. You know, like we're very certain of it. And Tottenham didn't have that. If they rotated half the squad, it was like, ooh, right? So they ended up having to rotate half the squad in league a lot to bring their best to Champions League. And then that they suffered in league because of that, right? Then they didn't finish outside of the top 4, but like they had a couple years they were competing for the league, right? And I think one year they had 86 points. They lost by 7 points. They had 2 points in their final 4 games. Not good on him. But like at the same time, like he was asking for more depth for that exact reason, right? Because if I have enough depth, you know, I think I can probably make runs in both places, you know, at another level. So Tottenham, awesome run, man. Like and there's so many people out there pointing to trophies, pointing to choker, and it's like, man, having Tottenham in a position where they could win the Premier League with like 3 weeks to go, I get like he bottled it or whatever, but like that in and of itself is enough for me to go, yeah, like give me whatever that is with the USMNT, right? Give me that level of like playing up, maximizing talent, because okay, if you're telling me we make a semifinal, but we bottle the semifinal, I'm in. Like I'm all the way in.
Yeah.
If you tell me you can get me to a semi, but I'm not going to win the trophy, I don't know who's winning the trophy for us, guys. Like I don't know. It's like
he's going to maximize the potential we have, and you know we talked about this at length. any USMNT fan that follows closely has always said that Greg is the one holding this team back, and we want to see what we could do with a real coach who can enhance the players' abilities, right? So I think we're going to see that. We're going to see all these players unlock their potential. And I wanted to transition to something that Tim Howard recently said, and I wanted to see what you thought about this. So Tim Howard did an interview, and he said the USMNT is a top 5 job in international soccer, and he's excited to hire Mauricio Pochettino. However, he warned that the last foreign coach for the USMNT was a disaster. He said the lesson for Pochettino to learn from Klinsmann: understand the American player. What do you think about that?
Well, he had the stories in the article were really interesting about, like, I don't know, getting woken up at 5:30 for mandatory runs and controlled diet and all sorts of other, like, very German, right? To not to stereotype too much, but like very like regimented, rigid, right? I think it's coming out of that German system of development and team building, right? And there is a very legit point there, right? Which is that absolutely a coach needs to understand their players in international soccer. That definitely does mean culture, right? That they're coming into. I don't think a coach should totally put aside all their beliefs and how they're going to hold people accountable, but probably some balance, probably some, I don't know if there's probably a better way that that Klinsmann could have done some of that stuff and executed it. It sounds like he executed it in a way that he made all the players hate him. And I don't think you want that, right? I'm okay not being loved as a coach, but like if everybody hates you, it has a shelf life, right? And it's split, right? Like it's just everybody's going to have a different opinion on that. So I don't know. I agree with him on some of his points are well taken. Are we a top 5 job? No, not even in a World Cup year. That's very strange, right? There's like
Yeah.
5 to 10 teams that can win a World Cup, right? Really
Yeah.
4, 5, 6 legit, and then maybe a couple other fringe ones. And we don't make any of those cuts, just being honest, right?
Yeah,
So
we have to be honest. Yeah.
even in a home World Cup, right? I'm still taking the Germany job. Even in a home World Cup, I'm still taking the Portugal job. I'm taking the England job. I'm taking the Spain job, right? I'm taking
Brazil,
Brazil. I'm taking
Argentina.
Argentina. I'm taking, like, and there's even more, right? We could keep going with that, and that's not the whole list of teams above us, but like I think he might have been kind of saying like this cycle with it being at home, it's a top 5 job, maybe just to give him a little benefit of the doubt. But it's very strange. But I do think Poch, like any coach, is going to understand that, right? Now, how well he does, executing it, we'll see, right? We'll see. But it's 10 camps, right? Something like that. I don't know. It's
Well,
10 camps.
I was going to say too that I think that we did the polar opposite last time, Adam. We had a guy who maybe understood the American player too much to where he was overcompensating, letting too much things slide. And we heard that with some of the rhetoric and some of the things that the players were saying of why they didn't want Greg to go is because he was kind of like running almost like a friend camp. Like he was letting the
Right.
players do things that a coach should never let a coach things that coaches should never let players get away with, holding them accountable. That had to change. I mean, I'm not saying it's got to be a military style infrastructure where, like you said, running laps at 5:30 in the morning. But I think there's got to be a balance, man, where you got to hold these players accountable to get the best out of them. And if a player is either out of shape, breaking curfew, having a bad run of form, they can't have guaranteed starting spots. And I just tweeted that too the other day. I'm curious to see who, when Greg Berhalter was the manager, the starting 11 was written in pen. Pochettino needs to be writing it in pencil. That's how it should be. Nobody's job
Sure.
should be guaranteed. It's got to be earned.
Yeah, and one last thing on the Klinsmann thing. I mean, like, and this is where it's like, if I'm Klinsmann, just to like get in the coach from the coach's perspective now, and it's a decade later or whatever, 8 years later, I'm like, yo, man, like, I get you guys didn't like me. I didn't want to be liked. I got us out of a group of death, and I got us to a Copa semi, and I think upset the status quo a little bit in the country in a way that probably helped push things forward. How about just a little respect? Get that you didn't like me. Get that I did a bunch of stuff that pushed you out of your comfort zone and that you guys didn't love. Get that you guys all banded together. That's literally how some coaches work, though, right? I mean, that's Herb Brooks. That's like Herb Brooks's playbook from the 1980 Miracle Hockey Team. It's like, I want these guys to hate me and love each other. And that's a total thing. Now, like I said, the shelf life and the issue is the second window, which he should have never been rehired, to be honest. I get that. I think that's when the Copa happened. But like, it just, when you do what he does, it's not going to last 8 years. It's going to wear off, right? Poch's style seems different. I don't know that much about it. I think he had some issues at Chelsea this year. I'd be really interested to know the back end of Chelsea because I don't. But like something's going on at Chelsea. They spent $1 billion and they can't find any, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. And they can't find anybody who can win. They've hired the best of the best coaches. No, like other than Tuchel's Champions League run, it's been kind of shambolic for their spending, you know? And like, and all of a sudden he comes into that, right? And who knows the mess that was there with a 12th place team. You've got dudes have been bought for massive sums of money, not playing. You've got young guys coming in, right? And being integrated. Now you've got a new manager. You've got an owner who's overriding the manager from what I've heard a lot there. And like, who's got the power? Should the players respect the coach? There's all this just like terrible, like management of a team 101 just failing at Chelsea, right? And here he is like, okay, Poch, do your thing here with this team. At the end of the day, the results, I've argued this for the last 2 days, the results of that season just can't be seen that bad. They certainly weren't a smashing success, but he took a team that was 12th. They finished 6th. In the last 16 games, he had them playing the third best, right? Like if you just look at a table from the last 16 games, they're in third. Second half of the season, I think it's 4th or something like that. But it's like basically they were playing even with Liverpool over the second half of the season. And they were only behind City and Arsenal, who were very good last year. So that's still not that bad. I'm like, oh, cool. Like if a coach did that, if a coach took over a 12th place team, got us just in a vacuum, don't worry about spending, took over a 12th place team, got us to 6 and played the best soccer in the second half, I'd be like, cool, can't wait to see what you do next year, man. Like
in the Premier League too, keep in mind. In the Premier League.
Yeah, in the Premier League. Hey, like, can't wait. We'll give you this summer, man. Like, can't wait to see you with a little roster turnover and really establishing your own like team, roster, style. But I don't think you ever had a fair chance to do that there. It doesn't seem like it. And it seems like, I mean, there seemed to be some maybe disciplinary issues that he missed there. There was that whole thing with like players fighting over a penalty kick last year. And so some cultural things that weren't maybe going great, but I don't know. I wanted to touch on the Chelsea tenure because a lot of people have been talking about that one as well. And I just don't think people are just like saying PSG and Chelsea massive fails. And I'm like, no,
well, that's a good point about Chelsea too, because when it comes to winning, Chelsea has moments. They don't have longevity. They win the league. Their new coach will normally come in like Jose. When he came back, he won the league his first year. Then it was a dumpster fire. Antoine or Conte came in, they won the league his first year, then it was a dumpster fire. Every time Tuchel obviously won the Champions League, he didn't win the league, dumpster fire afterwards. There is no longevity at Chelsea because it's such a toxic environment that just you can't really win long term there. So like you said, taking him that was probably the lowest point Chelsea had been in a long time, coming off a 12th place finish, and then him bringing them to 6th. When has a Premier League team ever went from 12th to 3rd or 2nd? Doesn't happen like that.
Even if you're Man U, even if you're Chelsea, right? It's like not a realistic expectation that if you have a shambolic year where you fall to mid table, it's not realistic that you're just going to like that jump back to 2nd. It's not realistic, right? And like, so I don't know. I don't want to gas up those two tenures because I don't even, I was kind of coming from the place of, okay, I'm kind of neutral on those. There's some good, there's some bad. Kind of also just like really short tenures, right? Like seems like he's kind of in both spots let go, but it didn't seem like long-term projects, right? And that's where, once again, I'm more interested in the Tottenham tenure because I think it tells us a little bit more about what we're going to see. And here's a couple things I wanted to touch on, tactically, right? I think, and I'm not a tactics, I like looking into tactics. I like learning tactics. I'm not a tactics expert. But what I loved about his Tottenham teams is that I felt like he was able to like play, and this is maybe a negative at the club level, but I think it's going to be a massive positive at the international level, is his teams are definitely a little bit more simplistic, right? A lot of pressing, a lot of like getting guys to play hard, right? That's a lot of what he did there is he got those Tottenham teams to just go really hard. And then I think offensively, he sets up pretty simple tactics and lets like players thrive, right? That's like what's what I see. It's certainly what I've heard from people who I think know more about soccer than me. And I trust that. And it's definitely what I see when I watch. And to me, that's perfect for international soccer. You don't have a lot of time to put in intricate game plans and intricate systems. I think that was one of Berhalter's flaws. I think he was trying to put in a really intricate system because you heard multiple times from players in the mix, like, hey, you need 3 camps here, right? Ooh, this is going to be tough for these young guys, right? You heard all these vets constantly saying that. I think it's one of the reasons he held on to guys like Yule and guys like Leggett and guys like Morris, right, for so long because they had familiarity. And I think that familiarity was important in an intricate system. I think with and then I think the downside of it was I think so often, Will, we saw our players just like if you've ever been on a sports field or court and not known what's going on with your system, right? You've been there. Like you're not playing the sport, right? You're not like expressing your creativity and your aggressiveness, your thinking, and you're like, am I in the right spot? And just it's total hunch, but that's just what it always kind of felt like with our guys. It never felt free. And Poch teams are the opposite, in my opinion. Maybe to a flaw, right? Especially at the club level, maybe to a flaw. But I think at an international level, he's going to set these offensive attackers free in a way that they have not been with the national team.
Well, another thing too that I just thought of, you mentioning that, and I've been thinking about this a little bit as well since the hire, is I wonder if Poch is going to. So you know how Greg wanted to play center backs who were good with their feet and they could pass the ball from the back. I wonder if Poch is going to go more of the mindset of like, that's nice, but at the end of the day, I just want a center back who can mark their man, stop them from scoring, regardless if he can pass as good as Chris Richards. You know, Walker Zimmerman wasn't good with his feet, but he was a good one-on-one defender for the most part. Obviously, he had a couple bad performances. I wonder if we're going to get back to that mindset where we just play the best player, regardless if they, like you said, fit the system or they can't pass the ball. The back is good. That's what I would like to see because I want to maximize the opportunity of like John. Now, John Brooks, I think he is a center back that should be back in the fold because I think he's 31 years old. Obviously, he fell out of favor with Greg, and they, very tumultuous relationship there. I think Greg used an excuse that he didn't fit the system as well. I would love to see him come back in because I believe he's one of our best center backs. I think that the best players should play regardless of feelings, regardless of style of play. You just got to get the best 11 on the pitch. Let them play and let the magic happen. That's what Carlo Ancelotti does at Madrid. And what does he do? He wins the Champions League every damn year. I mean, that's what we got to do.
Yeah, I agree. I'm interested to see which way he goes. I think now the most fun thing, right, is we get to really see this play out over the next year. We start to get a feel for what he thinks about our players. I'm sure he's going to do extensive scouting, and I'm sure he's going to be going to games and watching games, and like we get to see what definitely high level coach who is a high level, talent scout and all of that. He's got chops and all in that, and with all that stuff. What does he think of our guys? I think we've had a lot of question marks because we haven't had a high level talent scout. I think watching our guys, in my opinion, it's I think Berhalter's kind of figured it out. It just took him a while with some guys. And Poch, it's gonna be intriguing, right? Like people have said, "Oh, what happens if he calls in 5 MLS guys?" And I'm like, I don't know. It would be crazy if that happened. If Poch thinks 5 MLS guys are 5 of the best guys in this pool, or maybe he thinks there's 4 or 5 MLS guys who help the team in some way that we don't know and we don't understand. But I can tell you this, like, I'm going to give him a lot of leeway. I'm not going to complain a lot about a first roster. I didn't complain about a lot of Berhalter rosters until we were a couple years in, right? And I think a lot of people, that's the other thing a lot of people are going to do is they're going to like conflate being a first year, brand new coach with like the standards we had for Berhalter after 5 years, right? The standards we had for Berhalter after 5 years were like, yo, all right, we've seen this a lot, and this is the thing we don't like again. And that may happen with Poch, but it's not going to happen in year one with me. Like, I'm going to give him a lot of leeway. I didn't understand what Berhalter was doing in 2019. I used to fight with people online about it all the time. But my thing was like, well, let's give him a chance, guys. And everybody would be like, no, why isn't he playing this younger guy? What the heck is Will Trapp doing it again? And I'd be like, I don't know what Will Trapp's doing. I agree. I don't know. But like, I just want to give the guy a year. Like,
Benefit of the doubt. Yeah, because you just don't know what could happen, right? We haven't
I'm
seen
not
it
a
in
professional
action.
soccer coach, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know if he should be, to be honest. I don't know if Greg should be, to be honest with you.
Well, calling in Will Trapp, I'm like, I don't see this, but you're a professional soccer coach, and I'm interested to see where this vision goes. Maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong a lot about guys, and so it's going to be kind of the same with Potts, right? Like, who's he bringing in, and what? How does he mix guys up? Does he put guys in different places than they have been for years in this system, right? Does he have a different idea about certain guys that have just been like, like Tyler Adams, when healthy, has been like an absolute lock. Like, does that change, right? Like, I don't know. Poch likes guys who work hard, though, man. He likes guys who work hard. He likes guys who will press. And that's the other thing, right? Is like, I was most worried about Jesse Marsch because of the gung-ho pressing tactics. And Poch certainly over the years has been pretty dogmatic about getting in people's faces with some press. And so what's that going to look like, right? Like, is that going to be our approach? I think he's smart. I don't think he's going to try and go do that to Brazil, but maybe he'll be doing it to Canada. But there's just a lot of intriguing questions, right? I don't think we're going to get to them all tonight. I'm interested to talk about them as we go, but that stuff is all kind of like art of the possible, which to me is really fun.
Yeah, exactly. One other thing I want to ask you about too, because this is obviously a cause for concern, is this is kind of like a bonus topic, I guess you'd call it, is goalkeeper. Matt Turner did not play today. Obviously, Zach Steffen was supposed to be the heir apparent eventually to Brad Guzan. He flopped in Europe, and he's back in MLS playing at Colorado. Gaga obviously isn't ready to be the starting keeper, even though he seemed like he was the blue chip prospect at goalkeeper, the best possibly we could ever had. Horvath, I don't think is the answer. He was disastrous when he played in Copa America and the friendlies. He didn't look good either. Man, goalkeeper is looking very concerning. And I was talking to Tack about this earlier about Camp Cupcake, normally in the wintertime. And he was like, do we even have that? Do we have MLS players? I mean, maybe this is the time to look at some goalkeepers, man, some MLS goalkeepers like Patrick Schulte, or slipping my mind, but the goalkeeper from Cincinnati, or even Steffen, to see if he's worth a damn at this point. But that is a real concern, a position that historically has been our strongest position.
Yeah, I mean, did you see the Horvath error today?
I didn't actually, no.
Oh God, go look
Was it
that up real
bad?
quick.
Yeah.
We let up 5 goals, first of all, today. And then secondly, one was like a basic back pass to him that he just like botched the touch into the goal. Like, when I say botched the touch, I mean like actively missed the ball.
Oh God.
Really,
Yeah, I'm watching it. Yep.
I mean, it was like really bad. Like, oh boy, like I don't want any part of that anytime soon. Like, no, it's bad. Goalkeeper's bad right now. I don't know if anybody has the answer. I'm interested to see what Poch's answer is, because I don't know. Like, if anything, like, you try out some other guys, and kind of Matt Turner sets the floor right now, right? And he doesn't set like an atrocious floor. I mean, he still, for national team, hasn't been like shambolic. Like, I'll just say that. Like, I don't think he's been great for a while. He had a really good game against Brazil. Other than that, he hasn't been great. But it's not like he's like letting in shambolic goals. It's not like, he's consistently turning the ball over and it's leading to goals. But it's not good. And some of that has happened a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. If there's somebody in MLS who looks like they're ready for a shot, I'd definitely bring him in and give him some play in the next, whatever it is, 8 months.
The worst thing that happened to Matt Turner was when he made that move to Arsenal at the beginning of the 2022 season.
Yeah.
He has only played 17 games
It's
in the
crazy.
last 3 years, and I don't understand why he went to go be Arsenal's backup in the first place. We
Don't
knew
get
he
it
wasn't starting. I think that
out.
playing games is the most important thing to do.
This is what happened to Stefan, right? Is he like
Yeah.
got stuck in backup land in City for multiple years, a year and a half, I think. And it's just like he came out of that and just never refound anything, right? He was okay in the Bundesliga the 1 year he was there. I think he pretty average, but like not bad. And certainly good enough to get signed by City. But to your point, like, why do that? Just if you're good enough to go be a backup at City, just go play somewhere solid and play. But who knows? Stefan probably just was never the answer, right? And Turner might have just kind of maxed out, what he was, and was just on a super hot shot stopping streak in New England, right? And that kind of carried over to the national team for a little bit, and we took advantage of it. But at the end of the day, Matt Turner started playing soccer when he was like 17 or something like that,
No,
like
I think Matt Turner's good. I just think that I
he's
just don't
fine.
think Matt Turner's not good enough to where you're playing on the 17th worst Premier League team and he's going to be your savior. He needs to play on at least a mid-table team to have that solid back four to bail him out in certain situations. If you expose him like that when he's playing in Man City and Arsenal, a top four team, and he's playing on Nottingham Forest, he's going to get exposed because the defense is so bad. Like
Right.
that, he should have honestly went and if he couldn't get to which I understand why he made the move to Arsenal. That's probably a dream come true, but
Yeah.
he needed to be playing on the mid-table team at minimum, just that way and be playing right. So it looks like he's going to make his way back to MLS this winter. That's what the reports are, which is sad to see. But I mean, he's only 30 years old, so I mean, he's still pretty decently young for a goalkeeper. I mean, hell, he could play another 10 years. So it'll be interesting to see what happens if he does make a move. And some of these players, if they do have, as Tack calls it, camp cupcake, see who gets called in for it. But yeah, man, I'm glad we're on the same page about that, or that we think this hiring was not overrated or he sucks. That's just very shallow with no context of what he's done. I think he's a good manager. I think he's going to be successful for us. And I can't wait to make more videos with you talking about his success. And hopefully we have a great 2 years.
Yeah, and we're gonna miss him in September. I'm sad that's happening. I don't fully know the details or reasons why. I would imagine he would want to get in with the team ASAP, and there seems to be some sort of I've heard rumors that there's some holdup with the Chelsea contract and something, but who knows? But that's gonna be kind of unfortunate. I like Mikey Vadas. I think he's done a good job with the FC Dallas youth teams. Was kind of a leader in kind of the wave of talent they had there. I was actually working with FC Dallas a couple years ago through our company, and those guys loved Varas and thought he was just like a stud. So I'm sure he'll do a totally fine job, but it'll be a stopgap before we actually get to see hopefully the real deal in October. But it's going
Panama
to
is
be
the
fun.
first game. I think Panama will be his first official match. And then we obviously play Mexico. So at least we have that, right?
And, and I'm
Yeah.
and I'm gonna preach patience, man. Like he needs to explore this roster and he needs to explore this team and nothing. There are zero results that really matter until I guess Nations League next year, which are the first real things. So everything before that, I hope he explores. Even Nations League, honestly, and people won't want to hear this because I know we've beaten Mexico so many times in a row. I would rather him be a little bit more exploratory with the Nations League. Not, if he's like, hey, I want to try this out because this might really help us out. And he's not 100% on it. Coaches have to make these kind of calls, right? Tactical calls, player calls, where it's like, man, I think this could be the future. But I have a high stakes game. I can't risk it in this high stakes game. So I'm going to go back to what I'm more certain will set a higher floor, right? This happens all the time. I hope up until probably Gold Cup, he tries all that stuff out and figures this team out because there's a lot for him to figure out. And it might mean we don't win the Nations League. It might mean, I don't know, right? Like, I won't be happy if we don't win the Nations League. It'll make me question things more for sure. I'm not going to say it's not, but at the same time, I preach patience here. I preached patience for like a year and a half, 2 years with Berhalter as well. and I'll do the same thing now, right? I know a lot of people know me as an anti-Berhalter guy. That was from like middle of 2020. That was World Cup qualifying, honestly. Like it was like after the Panama game is really when I was like, okay, it's time. I gave Berhalter that much time. I had arguments with, people on Twitter will tell you I had arguments not pro Berhalter, but like, no, guys, we still need to give him more time all the way up until World Cup qualifying. So I'm just going to preach the same thing because I think it's the rational thing to do. Like, let's give the guy a little bit of a grace period, right? Let's give him until Gold Cup next year to like get his feet wet and establish what he wants this team to be. And then to me, that's the first real benchmark is Gold Cup, right? I'm sure a lot of people it won't be. It'll be Nations League, I think, which is maybe next March or something like that. But for me, it's Gold Cup. It's like that's when it's like, okay, you've had a year with the squad. You're a guy who's had a lot of success in knockout tournaments, Champions League specifically with, Tottenham, getting him out of groups that are tough, making some runs. Who are you and who's this team going to be? That's kind of what I'm aiming at, Will.
Yeah, and also too, I want to preach patience for fans. If we do come out the gates looking really good, to not expect that every game because that could just be, there's a lot of circumstances, right? So if he has 2 great games and then he has 1 flop, you shouldn't be getting out the pitchforks and pleading for his firing or anything like that. So yeah, it's going to be exciting, man. It's going to be exciting 2 years. He's going to have the longest leash probably in U.S. men's soccer history. He deserves to because, this is an important cycle. He's never coached the international level or national team level, excuse me, and he deserves the transition period. So, yeah, Adam, it's going to be exciting to see what happens with Poch. I appreciate you coming on. Make sure you follow Adam at Stan USMNT. It's right there. You can see his name. He's a great follow. He always talks with the national team, has some good takes, good opinions. He will argue with you occasionally if he feels like it, and you say something really stupid. Good content though, right? Good engagement. He's always down to have the debate. Anything you want to say before we head out?
No, man, it's gonna be fun. I think the one thing that just came to my mind actually that we didn't touch on is I think Poch, he's Argentinian, right? And I think the biggest success he had and the most connection he had wasn't with an Argentinian or even a Spanish speaking team. It was with a mostly English speaking team in Tottenham. And I think that's pretty cool and pretty telling, right? That he could break down cultural barriers. And that was a pretty international team if you look at it, right? Sonny's South Korean. And so I anticipate he's going to build the same kind of connection, even though he's not American, right? I think that's another catch thing that we didn't talk about. A lot of people want an American. I think he's going to very easily, readily gain respect, build relationships, a player-coach relationship, right? Not deeper than that. He doesn't need to we don't need him to be best friends, but like he's going to gain the respect, everything you need out of a coach, and kind of recreate the Tottenham thing. I think that's what he should be looking to do. So I'm excited, man.
I agree. We should be the USMNT Spurs Pochettino edition. Hopefully that's what happens. Well, Adam, I appreciate it, man, as always. Until next time, guys, I will see you all soon.